We're absolutely delighted to have another bunch of amazing people as part of the Mentorpreneur program initiative that we've got, and we are back in our studio, in our Crazy Mad studio, where we have invited some very special guests today. Our first guest is Lee McMahon, and Lee is with Support Legal. Lee, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a wee bit about who you are and what does Support Legal do?
Yeah, so Support Legal is a new legal services platform that's been set up here in the UAE to target entrepreneurs and growth companies in the Middle East and Africa.
And we also have our friends from IBM who have been a great supporter of this initiative. They've trusted us, they've taken a leap of faith and working with a young company on a long-term basis. And thank you for doing that. Sameh, could you tell us about your side of IBM, because it's a big monster company? What do you guys do?
Well, IBM is a technology leader in every area in the IT. So my name is Sameh Farid. I've been with IBM for a bit more than 20 years, much of it here in the Middle East. I run the cloud unit for IBM in the Middle East, a new unit in IBM. And IBM is in every area in technology. I would say we're probably leading every area in the IT technology right now and for the past 100 years.
It's interesting because IBM is one of the few people who actually went down and came back up again and made it through a massive pivot and a massive reorganization. We could go back to that in terms of how organizations in the future need to be very flexible and versatile and reinvent themselves. Kushal Shah is the managing partner of Roland Berger, and they're a boutique, actually not a boutique, a large consulting firm. Could you tell us a wee bit more about yourself, sir?
Sure. So I run Roland Berger here. We try to help large companies think like small companies and small companies think like large companies. We've been active for the last 10 years in most spaces here in the Middle East. I also founded and a board member of Dubai Angels, which helps young companies find both capital and mentors.
Thank you. I think the idea is to just have a conversation and discuss some of the key elements of the success factors to make this ecosystem work. So let me throw an open question out there, and you know, you can just chime in. The first question to me would be: is the startup ecosystem really working here, or are we just getting seduced by a lot of activity and not enough movement? Anybody? Lee.
Look, I think it's working. I wouldn't say that it's a smooth ecosystem, but I know that there's a lot of it's going in the right direction. They always talk about, when I speak to entrepreneurs, they're always sort of saying that there's a gap, particularly, say for example, angel investors. You know, they might be there, but there's not enough of them to be able to get seed investment off the ground. Plenty of VCs floating around with cash already, but they want to see you when you're at Series A further down the line. But no, I think that we're popping up in the region now. We're seeing so many new incubators and accelerators coming up, which is fantastic. So it is heading in the right direction. And Dubai government's obviously doing a great job in pushing forward on the agenda.
Kush, is there enough money in the market? And I know he mentioned at the VC level, but at an earlier stage level for young companies, how is that space coming in, particularly with your experience with Dubai Angel Investors?
There's plenty of money, especially at that stage and more. The question is how to make the choices and how to present the facts. So is the talent that's coming in, the business model that's coming in to approach the money, does it come in the right way? It's basically ensuring that seduction happens properly. That's where probably the issues lie.
So in terms of developing the ecosystem, is it at that early stage, do people really need to sort of start getting involved in how to pitch, how to plan, how to package, getting the legal stuff going? Is that where the gap is? So that they are not being able to even present themselves properly? So folks like the Dubai Angel Investors and other angels are sort of saying, well, you know, nice idea, but you're not quite there yet.
You know, very often the pitch lasts between 2 minutes and 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you got to get your message across in an articulate way. You got to get your business model across. You got to be able to respond to questions that come back from the audience and the angels. and most entrepreneurs or most young people struggle to do that in that short period of time. So it works both ways. So angels have to give a lot more time than 15 minutes. So they have to prep the team, make sure that they're ready, they're coached, that the pitch event actually works. And very often it's not the pitch event that gets you the money. It's what happens before and what happens after.
What are your views on that?
I think we had a slower start compared with the rest of the world, but over the past 2 years it picked up very sharply up. And much of the technology partners around the world started coming in here, supporting the entrepreneurs, and now I could see plenty of them coming up. I mean, I pick up my laundry now on a mobile app, and one of these. So, I mean, I could see now these things are making a nice breakthrough.
You say that, and I'm going to push back as far as large corporations are concerned, because I work with a lot of them, and I've worked in the SME sectors with large telecoms companies and various others. There's a lot of talk about supporting. When it actually comes down to it, are the large corporations, the telecoms, the technology companies, the FMCGs, are they really supporting the startups and the SMEs? I don't believe so.
To different extents. I think the IT industry is one of the best in terms of support. So we actually do offer almost everything that we have for them almost for free, and we even give them our own mentorship, our own time also. So we virtually offer them all of our hardware, all of our software, and say for anybody who's qualified, come and access that. It's the whole wealth for you. And we take it even further step now. We have training for them, everything. Come and let me show you how to use it. We're a bit learning from them, in fact. So
Okay.
It goes both ways. I mean, sometimes they tell us this is not exactly what I want.
Right.
I want this, and we adapt and come back. So I think in general, the technology companies like IBM are doing a reasonably good job.
I would say most of the large companies, IBM, ourselves, you name it, Etisalat, etc., what they're offering is actually alumni. What's happening is people are leaving the large companies to become entrepreneurs, and in the past it was it's taboo to leave a large company, and we would almost close the bridge. And now we're actually saying, go ahead, become an entrepreneur. We'll support you in your alumni world, and especially the likes of IBM are doing more and more. And I think that's the, let's say, the talent that's coming out of large companies and going into startups. That's pretty good.
So is that really the way we can evolve the future? Because this region needs 100 million jobs in the next 10 years, so it's not going to happen. Our solutions are around entrepreneurship and around creating, developing yourself. Lee, what are your thoughts? I mean, as you've been around the region, what are you finding?
Well, I would say that I agree with you that a lot of people from larger organisations are moving in and becoming entrepreneurs. But at the same time, so it might be if you're, say, a telecoms engineer and you're going to go and start a telecoms entrepreneurial business or an idea, that's fantastic. But sometimes you might be a skill that you jump into an idea that you have actually no skill or no knowledge of. It's just an idea. And as we all know, an idea is about 10% of the whole business. No, I think we are seeing, I'm noticing that a lot of the people that are floating around at the moment there's a lot more entrepreneurs popping up at the moment in the UAE, more than actually I think that you actually see in a lot of the accelerators and incubators.
Let's talk about the Mentorpreneurs program. So what we did was we said there's so many pitching competitions around, so how can we be different? So that was our first question. So we had models like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den on the one side, so it is a bit of pitching. Then the other side is the voice, and the voice is actually quite interesting because I sing, and then one of the judges turns around and says, "I want you," and says, "I want you." So creating that little bit of tension, and even between the judges, we wanted to create a little bit of interaction and fun. And really, the idea is that the judges and the winners, they actually co-select each other. I know it's going to be a bit of a mess, and it's the first time you're doing it, but the idea is that we bring out not just one winner, but we bring out, at the end we will have 5, but the semi-finals will have 10. Those 10 people will be nurtured through boot camps, through the various other activities. I didn't really want one winner. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I said, we're a young company. I can't sign a check and sort of here's $10,000 for you to go out and do your thing. I said, what can we do to empower these companies? And that's where partners like IBM and yourself and others have come in, providing the support services. Because those to me became the critical factors, critical success factors. So this is how we started producing our sort of model. And the last piece, which is something very close to my heart, which I talk about, is reverse mentoring, where we have the young winners, have Osman Sultan from Do and various others who actually sort of saying they will. I called him up and I said, would be, I was talking to him about mentoring, and he said, yeah, I've been doing a lot of mentoring. I said, no, you need to be a mentee, not a mentor. And I'm reversing it because I think we can learn a lot from young people. One of my mentors is a 21-year-old Chinese-American kid. He's now at Stanford. He's doing his master's there. And he came on an internship last year. I learned way more from him than he ever learned from me. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if we're looking into the future, let's look at these young entrepreneurs and see it from through their lens. And at the end of the day, we'll have judges like Kush who will support us and guide us through. We'll have support companies like you who will mentor them all the way through. But those 5 or 10 people, the finalists, will actually be mentoring some business leaders like Osman and many others who have actually volunteered to become mentees. And suddenly it changes conversations. So these people will go once a month, spend 2-3 hours at Do. We go once a month, spend 2-3 hours at Aramex. They'll start learning from large companies, but they'll sit in meetings and saying, like, I might think the meeting is great, but my little mentor last year, I said, oh, that was a great meeting. He said, that was crap. You didn't talk about young people. You didn't talk about Snapchat. You were focused on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we don't ever use that. So what the hell are you talking about? And that was my learning. And this is part of what we're doing as far as this process is concerned. So that's to bring you into the picture. And it's really being run by our young millennial team. That's the other thing I'm doing. I'm ensuring that they run it. I'm there to support, I'm there to empower, but I'm trying really hard not to interfere. And successfully so. So therefore you have never seen me to this day. And you've already become our partners, and Alex and others, they've just gone out there and done this. So I'm very proud that they've managed to do that. So it's empowering them also to be able to go out there. And as I said in my introduction, it is about that innocence and that raw energy. I think it's, we get tainted at our ages, but we need that young flavor to come through. So over the next 8 weeks, it'll be clumsy, it'll be messy, it'll be all over the place, but at the end of the day, we will get their view of the world rather than ours, and we will be there to lift and support and take them forward.
I think in general, I mean, the idea of reverse mentoring, much of the technology that we're talking about now, the cloud itself is a way of reverse mentoring, because it was these startups that they said, I don't want a discount on hardware, and I don't want a license for a software for a year, first year discounted or free.
Yeah.
No, I need everything. I need it when I need it, and I need it now, and I need it delivered on demand, and you need to train me and help me to do it. And this is how we listen and start delivering to them, and it's a great idea. So you got this something called cloud where you get access to this huge supercomputers, and you get access to that pieces of software and cognitive and artificial intelligence, things that even the largest organization of the world would have dreamed about it a few years ago. They can't own it. It's too expensive. But now you get it on demand, and if you're qualified enough, you get credit so that you can use much of that technology. And for the first time, you're on par in the Middle East with your colleague in Europe or with your colleague in the US, which used to be one of the barriers here in the Middle East, is that I'm here, I'd like this innovate in a new car or something. Mm-hmm. But I don't have the supplying industry like my equivalent peer in Germany, right? Not legal systems, another story, access to fund, another story, but at least on the technology, so that people say, don't get into that area, because you don't have like the ecosystem that would supply you with that. You're in a smaller place or remote place, and now you're exactly like your peer doing the very same thing anywhere else in the world. You have access to the same platform, same technology. You just, all what you need is to put your own innovation and your own power. And we listen to them, and this is where much of our ideas that comes back in the market, and we take these ideas to the corporates, which sometimes looks like a good idea. Why don't you as a corporate also go on demand and you buy exactly what you need? You don't need to buy things and plan for it 6 months in advance. Sometimes you bought too much hardware or too little, or you bought a piece of software that you actually changed your mind later. So why don't you go with that? And much of them say, oh, you know what? It's a great idea. And then we take also the entrepreneurs and link them to these corporates in a form of hackathon. So these big companies, they have their own problems. They say, this problem, I've been thinking about it for years. Do you know some innovative solution? I say, probably not me, but I can link you with that ecosystem of entrepreneurs, and we have a hackathon, and you allow them 48 hours, 3 days, 5 days, and we provide the platform, the technology, and they think of the idea and they come back and we just facilitate, and these guys just give a piece of their brains to the corporates, and the corporates give a piece of their money to these guys, and it works that way. And you're right, this is the only way to create these jobs. It's if we don't innovate, can come up with the new startups, this is how we're gonna, I would say, take away jobs from the rest of the world rather than our jobs be taken somewhere else.
Sameh, this is a great analysis that you gave, and I think AI and cognitive services are democratizing, as I said, democratizing expertise so that now it's available to everybody. So, you're a DI. Are your applicants using it? Are things happening with you? And do people know about IBM's cloud services?
Yeah, I would say actually, first of all, the large corporates, what they do is they put a boundary, right, internally. They say you must be inside this boundary as an employee and work inside the boundary. When we talk to an external person or an entrepreneur, they don't have boundaries. You give them tools and you say, do what you want with these tools. We'll just kind of create a sandbox for you. So one of the companies we invested in, WrapUp, actually has IBM's Watson as they got free credit from IBM to get it going. It was basically two people coming together overnight over 24 hours and saying, hey, we could actually build some interesting thing out of this. Now, could IBM have done that internally? Could somebody else have done that in a structured way and gone to IBM? Perhaps, but it would have probably taken much longer than the 24 hours that the hackathon created. Yeah. So that's the beauty of having events and tools and access to mentorship that allows them to completely create something in a faster, cheaper, and probably much more better for from a solution perspective.
No, I think it's great. In fact, WrapUp are a great example. And when they came and we spoke to them about what they were doing, you can imagine if you had an idea like that. The biggest problem is, well, I need a lot of capital to be able to either get the hardware to be able to test it, and this allowed them to go from zero to a proof of concept very, very quickly. And look, I think because it's just using the technology, the hardware, and the processing power that you just could never actually get, other than if IBM offered it to you, and gave credits.
My initial impression when I first saw IBM Watson a couple of years ago, which has now evolved and morphed into cloud services and AI, and I'm very close to it, was that would it be cheap enough and accessible enough for average person to use it? Is it cheap enough and accessible enough and easy enough for us to be able to reach out?
The whole idea of cloud is that you pay for what you consume. So the most expensive technologies that no organization could have owned it on their own now is affordable to a two-person company. Because number one, they get first a good amount of credit of whatever software they need if they have a good idea, and moreover, they only pay for what they consume. So much of you can't go to a dealer and say, I'd like 0.2% of a nice Mercedes, right, because I would only use it a couple of days a year, only when I go with my girlfriend or something. So, but now with
Uber.
Yeah.
So he is time sharing the cloud,
yes,
effectively.
So it's effective use, like you mentioned, of resources. So we're sharing now resources, and you only buy the part that you need. And that cloud magic thing, right, it's not only that it gives you access to this huge hardware, to the software, and to the analytics tools, meaning what are people talking about me? How do they feel about my product? Or what was the change in their mood over the past 48 hours? After I announced this product, what was the actual response now? Did I do something wrong? And if you can even get it real time, like we're discussing now, I mean, if you have some analytics and if you're on a channel, on a TV,
Yes.
And you can watch the response of people, yeah, you're going the wrong way, I'm red.
Yes. Now, in all of this, we're in a very positive environment. We've got an ecosystem that's evolving and developing. You have a government that's supportive, and there are a lot of people like Kush in the angel space who are encouraging these companies. Do we have enough talent coming through? Do we have enough ideas coming through in a sufficiently developed form to be able to take and utilize your services and your services? And will we create the next Uber from here? Will we create, well, we have created the next Uber, we have created Kareem, but you know what I mean. Are we creating those great companies, or is it just little stuff going on?
I think this is a question maybe 3-4 years ago, the answer would have been simply no. Yeah. It's evolved a lot, and it's evolving faster and faster, and not only because there's more talent thrown at it. So I would say 5 years ago, you'd say you'd have to go to Beirut, you'd have to go to Amman.
Yeah.
Dubai wouldn't be a question. Now it's there. Yes, it's expensive, and yes, it's expensive to host here, but it's available. And are they pursuing new types of business models other than e-commerce and what happened a few years ago? Yes, everybody's kind of trying completely new stuff. The question is how to mature it. You can create a new idea, take it to the first step. How do you take it to the 10th step? How do you get the relevant support? And that's where I think whether it's what the Dubai Future Accelerator is doing, whether it's what IBM is doing, you start providing shields, protection. You start providing captive audiences to allow these ideas to take it to another level, and that's what we hope is going to form now. Create a new tipping point.
My core question was: do we have enough talent? Because a lot of entrepreneurship is need-based. So you go to Egypt, you go to Palestine, you go to Turkey, you go to Indonesia, big, huge markets, and they need to eat. Therefore, they become more innovative and creative. You come to Dubai, your dad's a billionaire, or you come here, you went to a nice school. Is it the same essence of hunger that drives creativity?
I think there is as much talent here as anywhere else in the world, probably better, because the multicultural nature and the open society here allows you to get access to all the countries of the world. So everybody's got relatives, friends, backgrounds from somewhere around the world. So I bring in my own culture, you bring yours, and hence that mixture would be even more innovative than a single culture or a single view of the world. So that's one thing. The second thing, the education system and the university system has developed quickly over the past 10 years now to have a real good standard. And the third is now we can see the legislation. So much of the legal system here was probably established for existing businesses rather than startups. But now you could see now the government support coming up and the facilitator, incubator. So I would say we're just now about to complete the jigsaw puzzle to start getting the outcome, which would be innovations and jobs.
Sure. One of the questions I always ask is the question of failure. Because our culture does not understand failure, does not accept failure, and doesn't exist effectively. But entrepreneurship and startups is about tinkering and learning and pivoting and learning more and adapting and tinkering and being versatile and then finally getting there. So you meander your way through. And in the past, a bounce check, you have a problem and so on. We now have a bankruptcy law. How is that bankruptcy law working? Is it supporting the average person?
Well, I haven't seen it yet essentially be applied to a startup. But one of the difficult things with a startup is that, even if you thought the business was going to go ahead and it was going to fail, just shutting down the business is expensive here.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people think, well, what's the cost of setting up? But it's actually the shutting down of your structure that's very difficult. And, you know, just even if you have a few employees and they're owed gratuity, for example, and you hadn't calculated that into the mix. So haven't seen it, thankfully, yet in terms of actually being applied into the bankruptcy law here. But I suspect it will come up because that's just part of the cycle of the startup scene.
I know, but I'll just belabor this point because I think a lot of people are hesitant and perhaps not taking the right level of chances. What do we need to do to create it as a community to give them some level of insulation from this? Kush, perhaps, you know, you're a big thinker on this startup space. You know, can we create a little wall around an incubator that they can fiddle around and screw up within that incubator and not implode, and that's how ideas will flow out?
So, you know, I take this way beyond our culture or the Middle East culture, or let's say our legal. You take any large corporate, right? And I'm an MD, you guys are all very senior. We all have that feeling inside our corporate. If we take our next step, we don't want to fail. We don't want to be seen to be failing in taking a big action inside the corporate. So what happens, and I'll give you an example. We worked with a very large oil company that had 10 ideas. And they spent over 5 years, close to $10 million, executing those 10 ideas in their kind of very structured processes and failed all of them. And it was a disaster for the person, etc. They then decided to kind of spin it off and, exactly how you said, create a little bit of a safe space, and allowed, you know, very young, very talented people to play, fail, and keep iterating. And within a period of 6 months, 3 of those ideas flourished. They decided to scrap 7, and 3 of them, they took it to 14 countries. And that cost less than $1 million. In 6 months.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, whether it's a large corporate, whether it's a government, whether it's a city, whether it's a family, we always have to give space to play, to nurture.
So should we just look at our education system and turn that around? And so instead of doing a 3-year degree program, you do a 1-year degree program and 2 years of tinkering, and 2 years of messing up in that safe space. Apprenticeship. Part of your graduation means that you have to do 1 year apprenticeship and 1 year of projects and so on. Is that something IBM would encourage, and is it doing it already?
We do take lots of interns, and we actually, much of these interns go back to support also our startup community, because they are ambassadors to help them out. And also we work with the academia. So instead of taking the people out of university, I mean, we go to them in the university and start teaching them there on the job, on campus, that what's happening in the real life out there. So it is not necessarily that you need to take them out.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You can go to them
Indeed.
and you start teaching them a bit about what's happening, how do you develop, how you plan. Actually, even how you plan for entrepreneur and how you plan for failure. I mean, there's also residual value. So we work with the academia very much. We give them lots of content and material, and we train them how to deliver these materials as well.
I closely follow Singularity University versus other universities. And Singularity University, they talk about being the university of the future. And therefore, they have not officially been accredited, because every 3 months, sometimes every month, they keep changing their curriculum, so they don't get approved. So therefore, they are not officially allowed, and it's a non-university university, or non-accredited university. Well, all the universities actually work on history and looking back, and all the professors are about case studies going back. So there's this crossover point at this stage in our lives in terms of education, talking and learning about the future. Existing corporations are designed for safety. They're not designed for disruption. They're designed to be predictable and efficient and productive, as opposed to be disruptive in future. So if you look at Moore's law going like that, you folks and the education system need to be, for us to be on that curve. How do we do it?
We are. I mean, the education system is changing again because of technology. So the cognitive analysis, we look at you while you're reading the content. How fast are you reading the content? Which points and which questions you stopped? And then you relate that to the other students. And these guys who are not good in that part of math, they are usually also weak at this physics, but they are great in chemistry. And then the computer changed the curriculum exactly. So you now have your own private tutor, which is like 10 times more faster or smarter than a private tutor. And now we deliver the content to you different than me, and then both of us now develop like 30%, 40% faster than having a standard education that is given to everyone.
Yeah.
And this is all because of artificial intelligence
Yes.
that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
commoditized or being accessible to more people in the world. So the learning industry is going to change drastically because that cloud thing that came in that can deliver these contents you can study at night or in the morning, and the computer is going to design that syllabus for you.
Yes.
So you're going to be a super student now because you have a super tutor.
Yeah. One of the things, Kush and Lee, if you can dive in also on this one, is that a lot of business, and we talk about 10x growth and literally getting onto the Moore's law 10x curve, and the way to do that is to firstly to digitize and to get onto that curve, and then to be able to be ready to be disruptive. So the first level is to digitize. How are our companies doing that? Because you can take a food company and digitize by, I don't know, having an open sourced formula. You can take whatever. In other words, anything can be digitized. So are we thinking like that at all? I know you are. But are we thinking in industry a little bit like that? How do I get onto the information curve? Because if I don't get on the information curve, I'm going to get left behind.
Reminds me, three years ago, I came with Kraken is the largest crypto exchange in the world, one of the largest crypto exchanges. So they came over and I said, let's go, we'll meet all the banks. Literally all the CEOs of the banks had white gloves on. They wanted to meet. They said, I'm not touching you. You know, your Bitcoin. I'm not touching you. So there is always a fear in the large incumbent organizations to touch innovation that could disrupt them. So, for example, accept for a bank to accept that they'll have their system working on the cloud. No. Even now, I would say, you take the big 4 or 5 banks today, they would not allow their internal systems to be cloud-based. Telcos, same story. Probably in a year from now, that'll change, and it's moving fast. But I think that's the question: how fast are they willing to open up their internal systems? They claim security, they claim need for protection of IP, you name it. But
I think it's changing. So first you'd see some of them saying, I'm not allowed legally to go on a public cloud, but I'd love these ideas of cloud. Can you build me my own cloud? Yeah. And then we said, certainly. And then they come and say, okay, now that we build that cloud, I've got this disaster recovery system that I'd like to keep outside the country. Can I replicate that cloud somewhere else? And we say, sure. I mean, and you can keep a safe copy. And then they start moving the development, for example. They say, these developers, I've got 200 developers, they're taking 30% of my capacity, and I don't have a space here, and can I move them to the cloud? And then that's why we always look in the world, like we call it hybrid cloud, not only local and not only public, but there is not an organization that's going to be 100% on the public and is going to be 100% local. I think it would be different percentages depending on different industries. And you would see that they are moving bit by bit to the cloud because it's much more efficient than having your own power generator for your own villa to buy the power from day one. You might want to keep a small power generator in case the
security,
public, maybe a backup or something. But eventually, like what happened in the early 19th century or early 20th century, that everybody abandoned their own, everybody had their own generator. Yeah. And then everybody bought from the grid. And we see much of the world, but people would still keep certain workloads. Because of legislation, because of certain sensitivity, they'll keep it local. Right. So we don't have that idea of that they keep everything on the public cloud or they keep everything on a private cloud. It's somewhere in between. It evolve. We call it hybrid cloud, and that's the way we see it. Yeah.
We've got about 10 minutes more to go. So
one more point on that, I guess. What you guys are doing is disrupting the legal world with the cloud.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things we're working on is providing automated documents online, because we're talking about know-how and the knowledge and being part of that. Half the problem is there's been no access to legal information. So if you're just even have an idea, you Google and you don't find anything, or you get teasers at some law firm saying maybe you should think about this. But actually what we found was that, you know, we want to feed people information. We want to say, this is the laws, this is where you should set up, this is what is IP, this is the kind of contract you need, and you should have it, and we'll give it to you for free. And where law's heading, law, for example, in AI, and talking about IBM Watson, is that they're going through legislation and cases so that you can ask a plain English question and it will convert all of that legal information and spit it out into a meaningful form. So you could say, you know, do I need a visa to go to America, and this is my nationality, and it will say, based on the US, you know, blah blah blah, it would come out and say yes you do. And a lot of other questions where lawyers used to get engaged to do a legal opinion on something could now be converted.
Now, in the last 10 minutes, what I'd like to do, perhaps, gentlemen, is two things. One of them is to talk about the Mentorpreneurs program as a judge. So you as a judge, what are the 2-3 things you would be looking for in terms of what you understand the program structure and concept for the person who will be applying, who have applied? Actually, now we're down to reducing them down to 20. So what are the characteristics that you're looking at?
Passion, because these guys are going to work 24/7.
Yeah.
They're going to sleep a lot. They're going to be stressed out in what they do. So they better have a lot of passion for what they want to do. It shouldn't be, oh, I want to make money and that's why I chose that. It's, you got to be there's a reason behind it. So that's probably number one.
Any other subsidiary? Because what I was doing is literally dividing up the pre-selection criteria. So the 20% was on product, markets, and so on, another 20% on strategy, and another 20% on team leadership. But I said about 40% has to be on exactly that personal gut feel. So even though it's a disproportionate number, as a judge, that'll be the kind of cheat sheet you will have to be able to do that. Lee, what would you be looking for if you were a judge or as a support organization?
I agree. I think passion is very important, because, you know, so many times when I've followed entrepreneurs, even when they get selected into accelerators or incubators or get funding, is that it's always backing the people. The idea happens to be the second thing that they look at, because anyone can change an idea and pivot. Yeah. So seeing someone with that passion, the hard work, because you have to be passionate about the idea that you're doing to be able to succeed, because you are going to be working every day. But I think it would be very exciting to see someone not just passionate about the idea that they're doing, but fundamentally, I love seeing people wanting to change something the way it's always been done. It's always been.
One of the second criteria was making a difference, which ties in with the MAD brand. Is how are you making a difference in your community, in your product line, in your business, in your life, and how do you inspire people by making that difference, which is an integral part of this process. The other thing which I very delicately balanced there, it's not about having winners as far as this pitching competition is concerned. It's identifying those people who have the greatest potential, the greatest ability to sustain themselves, and the greatest desire and the passion to succeed. And I think that's the slight shift that I've brought in. It's an experiment. I know we're talking about disruption. Here's a disruptive pitching competition. No winners. Now, there'll be 10 winners. But what are your thoughts on this different approach? There won't be a big band and a guy being announced or a girl being announced. It's going to be, these are our 10 people who have the greatest potential from the 100 and 200 people that we've identified. And this is why we believe they will succeed and contribute and make a difference.
I think one of the best things here is that you're bringing them together, meaning everybody is listening to how the others are thinking and the authenticity of the idea, which would open up other discussions immediately. So seeing what the others are doing, even though they are in totally different business, is actually enriching that experience. And then having the right mentor or facilitator to try to get information out, talking to them so that the others understand what the others are doing, would be a great benefit even for the guys who did not win, so that they are next time they are winner. And then of course, it's the positive energy, is that showing them examples of what happens last year or what happened before, so that everybody goes out, I didn't win, but I will win next time. I will win. So passion is certainly, I would triple that, is the most number one, especially. But you can actually infuse part of that passion by the facilitator, by the organizers, by giving example, give me hope.
Indeed. And one of the other variables that we brought in compared to a lot of other competitions in this region is we are capturing it. We're capturing the boot camps, we're capturing these kinds of shows, we're capturing your thoughts, and then our job will be to curate it. And one of my big internal challenges is how do we make MAD Talks as a platform genuinely digital. So all of these little pieces, I need to digitize you so that we can get on that curve. Otherwise, we can't scale. And part of this whole thing is how do we digitize and how do we get into this whole process to build up. We've got well over 100 applicants. We are industry agnostic, so within the next 2-3 days we'll get some some results, and we'll have a list of 20. So we'll share them with you guys, and we love your thoughts and your feedback. So as getting close to the hour, last sort of give some sort of gift that you can give in terms of idea or thought for all the applicants who are now going to get to the last 20 and into the boot camps. Lee, any advice, any takeaway, something practical that they can do between now and the end of September?
I think that be prepared to give it all, maximize the amazing the judges, the mentors, the partner companies that they're going to have access to, and this is a great opportunity for them to be part of this, and also the other applicants. They'll be able to share with other startups that you don't necessarily get exposed to. So I think if they can be ready to give all, I think that'd be...
It's also about getting people together and mingling, because what we're doing is clearing up a lot of the space here, and for the next 6 weeks we'll just make this space, this mentoring space, this pitching space, and everybody can come in, and if somebody wants to test a video, we'll give them support on the video and stuff. So the whole idea is really to empower them, so by the time they are presenting to you as judges, is actually be way readier than they would be today. And the boot camps actually do just that. We have a communications boot camp, we have a strategy boot camp, and then we have a leadership boot camp, and all of them will have different elements. So hopefully they'll be better prepared, and we are building a sort of system. And this is the first time, so we learn from it. Sir, you used the ideal word, which I use all the time. One of my favorite words is authentic. We want to make this real, and we want to make this authentic. That's really what our essence is. What advice do you have for the young people out there who have applied to be genuine and authentic, and how can they produce great results from there?
Authentic. I think much of these ideas that were not feasible a few years ago are now feasible. Just explore the resources around you. So authentic ideas that you thought, I cannot do that because I need that much capital or I need access to that technology. You would be probably surprised with a little bit search on the internet that you might get that access. IBM is one of them. I mean, you go and explore. IBM may be able to give you access to lots of technology or mentoring, but others are there, and also legal and so on. So I would say you may have already inside you many authentic ideas, but you have that mental block that it's too difficult, or it's, I tried that a few years ago, they told me. I would say over the past 24 months, there's major change, disruptive change. You may be surprised that you would have the access to legal capital and technology. Go and retest again. It might be feasible today. Don't just have this mental block that, no, I tried it before.
Right. So that's where.
Yeah. So I would say they should be very open to listen. It's very often entrepreneurs come a bit closed up, so they have to be visibly listening and visibly reacting to that. And they should be willing to collaborate with each other, because sometimes ideas have a lot of overlap, and why not? That's the one thing that we're trying to encourage collaborate with each other, because if you have too many fragmented ideas chasing the same eventual kind of end goal, very few will survive.
Thank you. My final question and advice to me personally, and as MAD talks as a company in our young team, what is a bit of advice that you can give us to make this thing successful over the next 6 to 8 weeks? Because, as I said, this is an experiment, and we got a mix of various things. Lee, what would you like to see that we do that would make you really happy?
I think that allowing the startups to essentially give feedback very, very quickly straight after it, because one of the things is they are going through this with you as well, and I think that if you get that feedback, you'll be able to see these by the end of the program. They will be giving so much more, and you'll be able to say, you know what, I've heard, and this is how we're going to push you this way. I think it'll be fantastic, and one of the things that I'm sure you'll do, but is by them being open and authentic, is that others will learn that actually what they're going through is not unique to them. They'll probably all start realizing that they've all had the same challenges.
Thank you for that. Great advice. We were going to do some of that, but I think we'll focus on and redouble our work on that. So after every session, we'll do a little 2-3 minute video as a feedback video.
Yeah, right.
And we capture that for them only. Also, I mean, not just for us, but it's actually for them. Within that, all of those things, we will find some nuggets which would work really well. So, your advice to us?
I would say you need to link them each other, link them to the technology, and also give them positive energy. So, a few good examples or videos of things that really made it big time would be great. Mm-hmm. Having some sort of resource database, this is where you go for legal, this is where you go for technology, would be a great advantage. And then trying to make them open up to talk to each other. Some of them are shy, or they think their idea is not as good as the others. It's also a great idea. So when they talk to each other, talk to you, and then have a resource database, whether in the net, on your digital channel, where they will see the real value. And then give me some positive energy. I actually can make it. There are people who made it, yeah. So,
yes. So what will make you happy? I mean, and how would you measure success? On the 30th of September, you'll say, this experiment was successful as a start. What are the 1 or 2 things that we must do to deliver to IBM?
I think the feedback from them is the most important thing. We're doing this event for them, so that they flourish and bring jobs and expand the economy and all of the good things. So their feedback is the most important. I would say that would make me happy, make you happy, and make everybody happy.
Absolutely.
When they say I spend my time properly, I'm very happy to participate in that event.
Thank you. Final word again.
It's advice from my grandmother. She knew how to keep young people happy, right? At 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, put food on the table. Put a little bit of cookies and something, they'll all come together.
Best idea.
Super. Thank you very much indeed, Kush. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Sameh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lee, real pleasure. Thank you.